Andy Thompson Construction, the start of Chris 2 LLC. If you're watching this, you're a friend or relative of Andy Thompson and already know the work ethic and product quality that goes into every Andy Thompson Construction product. This short presentation is an attempt to consolidate a great deal of information and to hopefully answer any questions you may have about Chris 2. First of all, why only friends and family? Simply, it's that I'm starting slow, with an exclusive group, one that knows me and knows what I do, and to a point, how I operate. Those who have seen my buildings, my designs, and my willingness to turn that vision into a reality, especially those with whom I've worked before. Chris 2 was named in honor of my longtime lender Chris, who I've worked with almost exclusively for the past 12 years. We have accomplished great things together. He is now retiring and building his dream home in Hawaii. I started to look for another lender like Chris and build a relationship with them from scratch. During my search, I found several friends that wanted to build up or diversify their portfolio. I realized I already had the relationships. Why not build a lender from scratch with these relationships? The concept of Chris 2 was born. Chris 2 is a legal entity that will act in the same way as the original Flesh and Blood version. The rules are the same and are now in the form of an operations agreement. The details are clearly spelled out for everyone who joins the lending team. Is it secure? In short, yes. Am I confident? Yes. Cocky? No. While nothing is ever 100%, I have gone to great lengths to make sure that I am not being flippant with other people's money. Chris 2 will be secured with a first note and deed of trust that is no less than 80% loan to value. Translation: I own property worth $1 million. That property becomes secured with a note and deed of trust to Chris 2 and opens up $800,000 worth of credit. Under that umbrella of protection, Chris 2 can now safely borrow. Chris 2 then lends Andy Thompson Construction the funds to build new projects, typically rentals. 6 months later, when the build job's done and appraised by a third party for say $1.6 million, at that point there are two options. Either Chris 2 becomes long-term financing and is secured by the new project, a working and active income stream with a loan-to-value of 50-50, or the project gets refinanced by a bank and Chris 2 remains secured by the original land. The whole time both properties are insured with general liability by Andy Thompson Construction, with Chris 2 as additionally insured. What's in it for me? I am offering 8% APR to the first round of lenders to Chris 2. The second round I will start looking for persons interested in 7% and then 6% within the next 2 years. Payments will be interest only. Chris 2 will pay the first 3 months interest plus any partial month on the first of the month after 90 days. This is so that I can start making the money work and I'm not just borrowing your money to pay you interest. After that, monthly interest only payments for as long as the negotiated term, typically 1 year for now. Chris 2 has its own automated bank account. Money goes in, mostly from rental income. Then, just like I would have paid Chris the original, an automatic check goes out to every single lender the next day, like clockwork. But Andy, what if? If I failed to repay, then foreclosure on the secured property would happen according to the operations agreement, just like a bank would. The assets would then be distributed among the lenders according to their loan amount. All this is spelled out in the operations agreement from day one. If I die or otherwise become incapacitated, then nothing changes. Chris 2 and I are literally separate legal entities. The automatic payments keep coming from Chris 2. Loans are kept to term. Contingencies are in place on how Chris 2 will be managed in my absence according to the operations agreement. If a lender dies or disappears, then checks will continue to come as instructed. It is up to you or the executor of your estate who cashes them in your absence. If the housing market crashes, then the checks will continue to come. Chris 2 obviously stops looking for additional lenders. Should the housing market crash, people will still need to rent. Should people stop renting, I will sell for a loss in order to make sure the lenders get their money back. This means everyone gets paid as long as the market doesn't drop more than 20%. The market would have to drop a whopping 28% before Chris 2 would only be able to pay out 90% of the original loan. Take the interest paid out over the last year, and if you had invested $100,000, you would only lose $2,000 with a whopping 28% housing market drop. Why use Chris 2 and not just lend directly? The short answer is that I would love to borrow directly. I will actually borrow directly from those who have 80% loan to value cash in hand outside of Chris 2. Most of us don't have somewhere between $200,000 and $800,000 ready to lend. Call me if you do. Chris 2 represents a big robot lender that is just made up of smaller human lenders. Without it in place, and I borrowed $100,000 from Julie and secured her loan with a property worth $300,000, and then Chuck came along with $140,000 to lend, he would be stuck in second position. Nobody wants that. With Chris 2, both Chuck and Julie are in the same position according to the operations agreement and protected the same because Chris 2 is in first position with a $240,000 loan. Now say Ryan comes in with his $175,000 and Marcus comes in with $25,000. Chris 2 would then be required to record another note and deed of trust on another property that has a minimum value of $250,000. Now all 4 lenders are equally protected under the Chris 2 umbrella on 2 different properties. This is extremely safe. This has the potential to include dozens of properties and as many lenders as I'm comfortable with. What if I don't want to be in a group of lenders? Doesn't this increase my potential risk? I understand your concern and I assure you that it doesn't increase the risk. It will be indistinguishable from lending individually. Everyone is in the exact same contract. Nothing another lender can do can affect your loan. The risk factor of an $80,000 loan on a $100,000 property is the same as 2 $40,000 loans on a $100,000 property. Why are you calling it lenders instead of investors, or loan instead of investment? Investment and investor implies a contract in which your money and return is attached to my success or failure. This is a simple loan and it is secured by a note and deed of trust. It will be repaid as such, no more, no less. An investor would run the risk of cost overages and would have more of a hand in how it's built, etc. An investor runs the risk of losing all if the project should fail. Can I increase my loan if I have more to lend in 3 months? Only if there is room according to the 80-20 loan-to-value rule. Only if I have use for it. Also, if you're past the first round lender phase of Chris 2, you may be stuck with a lower interest return. What are the loan requirements? Friends and family. Potentially a friend of a friend who has had the opportunity to see what I do. For now, that is all I'm comfortable with. Why? Because someone I don't know could come in and decide to be a fly in the ointment and ruin it for everyone else. I don't have the time, energy, or funds to pay a team of attorneys to write 1,296 pages of bylaws. Another loan requirement is a $25,000 minimum and $500,000 maximum loan amount. $25,000 is for the wary but curious. This way, all can participate by putting a foot in the water and throughout the year's time create a track record. In the end, we expect that lenders will have wished they'd lent more. More than $500,000 and I would have to make sure I could put it to immediate use. These are just guidelines and exceptions can always be made. How it works. Simply it's this. First, Chris 2 is secured to a property with a note and deed of trust for 80% of its value. This is the amount Chris 2 can borrow. The lenders lend Chris 2 funds. These funds are then lent to Andy Thompson Construction and used for the construction of new projects. When these projects are complete, they become new rentals. New rentals get filled up and the rental income pays Chris 2 8% of the loan amount. Chris 2 then divides the bulk payment into the appropriate amounts and back to the lenders. Chris 2 then records another note and deed with the new rentals, again at 80% loan to value, increasing its umbrella and ability to borrow against the new total. Thanks for taking the time to watch this. Let me know if there are any questions. I hope to hear from you soon.